Very good. It's 1:30, so we will begin our liquor control agenda for today. We have a fairly short agenda. Thank everybody for coming this afternoon. We will begin with agenda item number 1, approved minutes of the August 17th, 2022 regular meeting. If you have any changes or corrections, we'd love to do that. Otherwise, we will accept a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I don't know if there's any other changes or corrections anybody would like to make. Otherwise, all those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 2A, review liquor applications. Application for issuance of a Class FA alcoholic beverage license to Puerto Vallarta LLC, doing business as Puerto Vallarta, to be located at 4323 45th Street South, Suite 101. And Steve will get us started.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner, and welcome, Liquor Board. Glad to have you here. So the Class FA license is the food and alcohol license. I always like to think of it as like the Applebee's license, where you can get a full service menu item and also get a drink to go with it. The Puerto Vallarta, they are applying for the license at this time. There is a possibility with the Johnny Carino's information that came up after this application was in, that they may work out a deal where they transfer the Johnny's Carino's license. At this time, Johnny Carino's is still looking to see what they want to do with that license. The City Commission on Monday night approved a 6-month extension of that license so that they don't have to have continuous sale of alcohol. So there may be a little time. And the Puerto Vallarta, they needed to know that they would be approved for the license before they moved ahead with their business plan. So there may be, we may come back with something that just says, hey, we're going to transfer.
So Steve, what license is the Johnny Carino's license?
It also is an FAA, and it was issued originally in 2005. So it's before the 2014 where it comes back to the city. Okay. So it is eligible to be transferred.
And then would they have to go through this process if they wanted to get that license, or how would that go?
Well, what we've done at this point is done the background check on the 2 applicants, and they've passed. And so I would think that if they work out a deal where they want to do that transfer, it would be more of a notification to the city rather than going through that whole application process again.
I guess and obviously everyone else can speak up too, but my preference would be that would save us some time with all the background checks, but I think I would still like them to go through the process. Sure. Of having us approve it, even though we approved this one, because it's a different one.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know if everybody follows that and agrees with that. Yeah. And any other questions for Steve on this?
And just to kind of bring that around here, so we did do the background check. There really was nothing of significance that came to light. And so really it would be a recommendation of approval to send it to the City Commission on October 3rd.
Any questions?
No.
And so just to summarize what you said, Steve, so basically the one that we're approving now is an FA license that if they ever decided to give up the license, it would come back to the city. What they're considering doing is getting one that's more of an asset of theirs. Is that an accurate description?
Well, that's correct. Also that, if Johnny Carino's isn't going to use that license in the future, if they're not going to rebrand and reopen as something else, then this license, they would probably be able to acquire this license at a slight discount to what the city would be charging.
And I don't know if we've had this discussion, but I believe at a certain point we should start as a city thinking about buying back the licenses. Is that something that we've talked about or thought about at this point?
We have looked at it. It becomes very cost prohibitive to look at all the licenses and trying to.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying if we did them a few at a time, that wouldn't be as cost prohibitive, and it might be a little bit less interference to the market if we did that. So I'd like us to at least pursue that because anyway, I just think that makes it more of a level playing field. And so if you don't mind, so what would the ballpark figure be for buying this hypothetical one from Johnny Carino's?
That would all have to be negotiated. I mean, the amount that they paid for it was $100,000. So, I mean, if the city wanted to buy it back, it'd probably be somewhere around that 100,000. So,
once again, I just think that's something, and that might be as a group, something that we think about in the future, but that has been considered, that we've made this change, that now the licenses are not owned by the license holder. And let's say if we did an en masse where we bought all of them, that would be a huge amount of money. But if we did these as time is going on, that might be a little more realistic and it might be more viable. So I'm just gonna, this might be something to put on discussion for the future, but I might not be a bad idea.
And, you know, we could consider also separating into licenses that have no caps and licenses with caps, right?
Yeah.
And so the licenses that have no caps, like the FAs, the value of that license is never going to be more than what the city would issue it for. And so there'd be a one-to-one trade-off. If we bought Johnny Carino's and then reissued it to Puerto Vallarta, the city's really not out any money in the end. So.
I just like that concept. And the other thing is we want to make sure we have everybody that owns the licenses have an opportunity to have a discussion. But I think if you don't mind, we'll put that on future agendas. Just
Sure.
I just kind of like that concept. So and I apologize for we're swerving off into another topic, but I just think that's something to think about. So any other comments or questions?
I agree with you.
Any other comments? And I guess the background check was pretty clear, so I don't know if there's any questions for the police, but I think.
Need a motion then.
Okay. If there's no questions, do we have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 3 is the Police Department Monthly Report. 3A, the General Report. Chief.
Good afternoon, everybody. Fairly light report. There were 2 over-serving incidents at Windbreak, one at Kingpins and one at Old Broadway. Aside from that, nothing really significant. Happy to take any questions from the board on that.
Any questions? And just real quick, I want to thank you for sending those out ahead of time, so then we can kind of look through. It's good information, and it's kind of in a spreadsheet, so we can look through them. So I appreciate you giving us all an opportunity before the meeting to look at that. So thank you.
Appreciate that. And we're also working on coming up with a better data sheet for you to get ahead of time as well. So that'll be in process.
Very good. I appreciate it. Any questions about any of the specific different incidents? I don't know if there's any questions for any of them. And I guess, Chief, if you don't mind me asking, the Windbreak, obviously that name has come up before. So would you say that they're making improvements, or do you think are we still having issues?
I don't think there's any information to say one way or the other at this juncture. We're still seeing instances. This is the slower time. We're going into the busier time. I think as we talk about some of our ordinance changes and penalty matrices and things like that, we'll continue to monitor this, but
Okay.
I think it's the kind of help we need.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Chief. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll move on. Steve, you don't get to sit down and stand up. You need your exercise for today, so we're moving on to 4, a memo for recommending ordinance changes, and 4A is the server training changes. Steve?
So just a refresher here, back in December, the chief presented a number of issues. We brought that back a meeting or so ago and highlighted 4 of those issues being management background investigation, server training, a de-escalation training, and then a penalty matrix or penalty overhaul. So I did reach out to see if any of you had any issues that you wanted to specifically address, and in the absence of that, staff did meet with public health, city attorney's office, city auditor's office. Preston Nessemeyer, who used to do all of the training, has left his employment with the city, and so he helped us walk through some alternatives that we would have to the current server training. I think it's important to note that, in the past few months, we've seen more failures from people that haven't had their server training. And so we really felt like, okay, how can we address this? How can we kind of guarantee that we're going to have that 100% server training? And we all felt as staff anyway that 90-day window that's written into the ordinance now is kind of inhibiting that ability to get to that 100%. And so as we discussed, we found out that the North Dakota Safety Council actually has an online server training program that was based primarily off of the city of Fargo's training program. 80 to 90% of it is pretty much identical. And so then we all said, well, let's take that and see if it covers all of those areas. And so we felt pretty comfortable after doing that. I did pass. I have a North Dakota Safety Council training. I didn't get 100%. I will admit that.
I don't know if that's an endorsement of the test or not, Steve.
I don't think so. Not the test. Certainly not the person taking it. So anyway, they say on their website it could take up to 2 hours. We all found that it took right around an hour, of our time, and you needed to have 75% passing rate. There were intermediate tests along the way. So you'd go through a section, there'd be a question or two. And then at the end, there was about a 30 or 35 point or question exam that you had to take. And so we all went through that. The normal cost for that is $20. And then it's good for 3 years. So that mirrors what ours is, $20 in 3 years. And then, but right now, the North Dakota Safety Council has a grant, and so it is free. And so I would encourage anybody that's interested to go online, to look at that. There's a little bit of setting up, and you have to establish your account and your, who you are and that type of thing. But the proposal that we think would be appropriate, and really haven't reached out to the industry yet to get their feedback, but wanted to get this in front of you to see if we should move forward with this or not. But it would be to eliminate that 90-day period and to say that all people need to have server training. We would also eliminate the city from tracking that, and we would put our resources into more of a compliance testing. So we would come on site and say, show us that your people have taken their tests, show us the proof that they've passed, and then even to the point where maybe you've got 5 or 6 servers that day, and ask for their information and be able to cross-reference it, and put more of our effort into that side of it rather than trying to do the training side. Put the compliance on the businesses. So, Commissioner?
Yeah, so I have a question. So I'm comfortable with us shortening the deadline, but to me, we have to have the online before we shorten the deadline. I think that's very important. So my question is, can we just use the North Dakota Safety Council test and say, if you've passed that, then is that what your concept is? That we would basically transfer everything to that?
Yeah, correct. So it would be an all online course, not in person. I would imagine that if, we had a business that wanted to do in person and they lined up, 30 of their staff or something like that and wanted to do it, we could still accommodate something like that. But the ease of the course, the fact that it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, rather than having to carve out a time when you can get to a city-sponsored class, we really felt like that was a lot better method of doing the server training.
So can I ask, so then we would not have our own online, we would just use the Safety Council, or would we have our own online as well?
No, we would use theirs because the cost of developing our own online would be prohibitive.
Okay.
And that's why we all took this course. There were a couple of people from health and 3 from auditors that took it. And we all felt like we were covering, probably 90% of what we cover in our class.
Okay.
And so we felt like that was a good trade-off to get to that level.
And then can I ask you, so if you were taking this online, could you take a portion and then stop, or do you have to do it all at once?
No, you can stop and resume where you are at. Now, we all just kind of charge through it, but it is an option where, if you get partway through and you have to leave for a while, you can do that, and then you re-log in with your student ID that you've set up in advance, and can resume the test.
Okay, and then I apologize for asking all the questions, but so then let's say that somebody took the North Dakota Safety Council test, then would they just have to send it to the city of Fargo to as proof, or they don't even have to do that?
Under our proposal, they would maintain their own records. Okay, so that the city would only be coming out and doing a compliance review. So it would be up to the individual businesses to maintain that record. They're supposed to be doing it now and then sending it to us. And rather than us trying to track who their employees are and all of that stuff, I just think it's a lot smoother just to say, you maintain it, we'll come out and check periodically.
Okay, so this is my last one, and then, but I do think it's important for the industry to have us propose, show them what we're going to propose,
Yes.
and have their comments to see what they think about this. I guess that's the other thing, because to me, it looks like an excellent concept, but we want to make sure that we're doing it correctly. I guess that's my 2 cents. And now I'll try to quit asking so many dumb things. So go ahead.
I got a question. So I think you kind of touched on it in terms of business interruption. It seems like so sometimes you may find yourself where you need a server immediately, and even though it's a 2-hour commitment, it seems like elimination may be a little too much. I guess maybe a 5 days to get your license done.
Well, I guess the concept, John, that we had was that, when you're a new employee, you're sitting down, you're filling out your I-9 information, and you're filling out all this other and declaring, your address, and, maybe it's health insurance and different things like that, that you're signing up for all of that stuff. And so it really is, it says it's a 2-hour course. It really is an hour course. And so you just, as an employer, you just say, okay, now we're going to have you do this, and you pay them on the clock while they're doing that. Now that's just, that's our staff coming up with that concept. As Commissioner said, I still want to reach out to the industry. Sure. I want them to go and take this, a few of them, just to say, hey, yeah, this is a good thing. I want to circle back just to which courses are approved, and that we have in our ordinance currently that the chief of police can approve a course. So we still need to have the chief look at this course and discern if it's covering everything that we need. But, Preston has been working with this course, doing that for a long time, and he took it and he said, we're about 90% covered. There's a couple things that they could change a little or do a little better that would really help target Fargo a little more. We've actually made those suggestions to the North Dakota Safety Council. They may be looking for a little funding to be able to make those changes, in their program, and maybe we can come up with a way to help them with that too. So
I got a couple more questions.
Sure.
So in our industry, we'd have compliance training all the time, and if you don't pass the first time, you can just take it over again. So was there any kind of a waiting period if they don't pass the first time? Or can they just immediately study the materials again and take it within the next hour?
I don't know the answer to that, and so we'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
On whether or not there's, what that turnaround time is.
I would think if you could retake it, to me, it would make more sense than having them wait 3 days or whatever.
Yeah.
And then my final question, how about if you have language skill issues where you're unable to do the online course because you're not able to manage it from a language skills perspective?
And that's another, I'll have to get back to you on that. That's something that didn't come up in our discussion.
Okay.
So we didn't broach that subject, so.
Good question. Go ahead.
Very good question.
I am in favor of having them server trained before they start work. So I appreciate that you had looked into that criteria. I'm also interested in how strong the over-serving component is to that training. So I'm looking forward to Chief Zabolski's opinion on that too.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, okay.
Okay, so,
So let me ask Steve, so what's your timeline then? Because I think from our perspective, we're supportive of it, but we still have some more steps before we're willing to vote on it and then pass it on to the city commission. So
sure. So we're not in a terrible rush, right? But, so the next step, once you feel comfortable, would be to direct, or to request that the city commission direct the city attorney to make the ordinance changes. And then that process can take a little bit of time also. So if you would like, what we can do is reach out. I can reach out to the industry, see if they have concerns. I can send them the link to this. We can answer John's questions. We can get answers to that, and then bring it back. We could come back in another month here.
That sounds great. Go ahead.
As Preston's not working for the city anymore, he's made this recommendation that we should try to move forward quickly if possible. Who's running the classes now?
So I'm not sure if they've appointed somebody to replace him at this point, or if, the classes are, the classes were conducted by police officers. But Preston set up the classes and he lined up. So he may have had some of the police officers in the classes lined up for, a few weeks into the future.
Okay. So, I mean, my perspective, the questions that we have, I'm comfortable moving forward with this. Maybe I'm alone on this, but pending the chief's approval of this program, I'm comfortable with making a motion.
Go ahead.
I have one other question. Sure. So some of the other communities who I visited with, when a server is trained and has a compliance failure, if they've done their online training, then it's an automatic face-to-face training if they failed. So are we in a position, is that something that we want to have here too? If we've got a compliance failure and they've been server trained, is the next step to do face-to-face training? And are we equipped to do that if that's what we agree to?
I feel like that would be the folks who would fail this test. It would be it would be way less frequent, right, than what we're usually offering classes.
We would hope.
One would hope, yes. But yeah, I would be the face-to-face meetings. I feel like there would be a lot of one-on-ones there.
So at this point, what we were trying to do was separate server training from the compliance failures. We really felt like the server training component was something that we could achieve in relatively, shorter period of time, and then address the compliance failures down the road or, in the future here. That was kind of our concept. We hadn't discussed as staff whether or not, there would be an in-person component. If you failed, you had to go in person. That you could end up with classes with just one person or something if we move down that path. So don't know how effective that would be for, both the person conducting that server training and for the person receiving the server training.
But for now, I think we should move ahead. And so do you need a motion from us, Steve, or just an indication? I think we're all comfortable with the direction we're going. So I think and basically you're going to do these things, but then it's going to come back to us as liquor control. And then from liquor control, it'll go to the city commission.
So that is the path. It goes from liquor control up to city commission to direct Nancy to do the ordinance changes. So that process will take some time. So it's just a matter of if you want to make that motion to request the city commission to direct the city attorney to make the ordinance changes. Do you want to do that before we answer some of these questions, knowing that it's going to take some time to draft the ordinances?
I guess my opinion is we have to make sure that we have the opportunity for public input and also from the current license holders and things like that first. Even though we know it's going to take time, I believe symbolically we need to and I know it's going to take time, but I just think it should have this discussion, then come back to us, and then that's just my opinion. You might, if you disagree and say, well, let's just go ahead, that's fine. But I just think the next step is we need to have everybody have an input, because the main thing that concerns me is to say we're going to shorten the time, but we have to have online ready to go before we do that. That's just my opinion.
Well, Steve, you said that it is ready to go.
Yes, it is ready to go.
Like they're ready to rock on that. And I think between now and the city commission meeting, where they vote on this, we'll be able to answer some of the questions that we've had and have some public input as well.
But it's ready to go. That's great. But we have not talked about what the implications are and what everyone's opinion is about it. And so just because it's ready to go doesn't mean that we should act. That's just and I do know this is going to take some time, but I just think it's very important. That's part of what we're here for, is to give the public an opportunity to comment. That's just me. But
I will say, as a staff person, this board brought up issues or questions that we hadn't thought through. And so to have a little more time to go through some of those would put us in a better position to better vet it. So if you don't mind, I think maybe just bring this back in 30 days at the next meeting, then we'll be in a better position. This is the first time that you guys are hearing it, so, you know, the industry is hearing it, let's get some feedback. Let's kind of tie up some loose ends. Nancy will probably do some preliminary drafting, speaking for her here.
And someone needs to fail the test. You have to see what happens. if
Oh,
you
my
fail the
goodness.
test. Yeah.
It'd be pretty hard to fail it, I think.
Well,
But I just think this is a great thing to have online is going to be a great addition. I just think then people are doing that with lots of other businesses and lots of other things. And so to be able to have this available, and really you have moved very quickly. So I want to say that how much we appreciate it, because I mean, we requested this, it wasn't that long ago, and to have this already be to me, this is a great solution. So I think that's great, but the whole thing of we don't need to rush it. We need to do it well, and so that's very important too. So
I agree with that, what Commissioner Peppercorn said, but one question with Preston leaving, another 30 days isn't a big deal, is it? I mean, it's not broke yet, right? It's still working, so if it takes us another 30 days, I'd prefer to do that.
I believe so, and they probably have filled his position. You know, I'm not in tune with what's going on at health, and so I would imagine that they're carrying forward like they had been in the past, and moving forward, if we make changes, they'll adjust how that staff person works. There are a couple other things from that memorandum, unless you had any other questions.
no, go ahead. But I guess just really quickly, the whole question about language and accessibility of the test. I'm sure since it's a state thing, it already is, but just to be able to make sure we have that answered, that would be great. So
Yep,
thanks.
I jotted those down. So one of the things that we talked about was de-escalation training, and the North Dakota Safety Council also has a de-escalation training program. They do not have an online version. However, our discussion with them, they would be willing to send their trainer to Fargo if we could fill, a class is what they talked about. The cost was pretty reasonable. It was somewhere around like $680, but let's just say it's less than $1,000. And I think that what we could do is probably fill 2 classes in one day, maybe one that goes from 9:30 to 11:30, and one that goes from 1:30 to 3:30. And that way the person that's doing that training could drive over in the morning, do the 2 classes, and still drive back to Bismarck. So that's something that we found too, that de-escalation training is available. We haven't had the chance to preview that course or anything. So, we can continue to pursue that and to see what that looks like. Maybe we involve the police into some of that training somehow, and how much of that they'd be willing to share with us without it being a formal class. I don't know those. But we were kind of excited to actually find a program that is out there and is available. And so I think that there's a way that we could offer it. We would have to have a sign-up period, figure out a day that's going to work, and then have a sign-up period and have, try to do 2 classes in one day.
Just real quick, I think that's a great addition. Thank you for doing that. And I would like to have us find that to be an online down the road as well, because the de-escalation, that isn't just for security. Servers, and I think it would be very educational for almost everybody that works in a bar or restaurant to at least be familiar with some of those things. And so to me, having it in person, because that's what's available, I think that's great. But down the road, I would like to have the online for that if they offer it, because I think it benefits lots of, almost everybody that works in a bar or restaurant. Lord knows and actually at city commission meetings too, de-escalation is a good thing. And so I don't know if any other comments or questions, but.
And just a couple other things. We did talk about the management background. And so as staff, we're still discussing that. And then finally, that penalty overhaul, that was going to be the kind of that long haul or long reach. Yep. So, and that's all I have to report at this time.
No, that's great work, Steve. And so anybody have any comments or questions for Steve?
Just well done. This is I'm really excited about this
Thank
stuff.
you very much.
And for the whole staff, please pass that on, that I mean, this was very impressive that we found this, and it's, so I would say we're making very good progress, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Very good. With that, we don't have any other items unless, go ahead, Kate.
I do, and it might take me a few minutes here.
Go
So
ahead.
bear with me, but I guess since this board has come into existence, we've been presented with data. And 2 points I want to remind us of is that Fargo has one of the highest national binge drinking rates, one of the highest nationally. And the Cass County coroner for 2021 documented 81 alcohol-related deaths. And this last weekend on Saturday night, my husband and I went on a reconnaissance mission, and we just came downtown at 10 o'clock and 9:45 and stayed until roughly 2:30. Because I wanted to see what the climate was like. And while I thought I was prepared for the sheer number of people out on the streets and in the facilities, I was not prepared for the number that I actually saw. And furthermore, what was alarming was the level of intoxication. And I'm shocked that we haven't had accidents yet. I witnessed people falling down on the sidewalk. I witnessed vomiting. And it really concerns me. It really concerns me. And I think as a group, we really need to look at how we can address the overserving of our population, because we're certainly not doing them any favors by letting this go on. I'm shocked. That's all I can say is I'm shocked. At one point, I want to call out District 64 because they had a metal detector. They were wanding people as they went in. They were searching handbags, and they were also scanning IDs. So I really give them credit for all of that. And Fort Knox also was able to confiscate a fake ID, and they kicked the patron out. But another thing that came to mind that Bob had brought up several meetings ago was wondering about the limit capacity in those facilities and whether the fire marshal is able to go and check that. Because when 2 o'clock hit and everybody hit the streets, we had people way out into the middle of Broadway lined up in front of the food trucks that were 10 and 12 people deep. It's shocking the number of people who are out there. I really think that we need to look seriously at how we can address the overserving, because it's not going to get any better. And I'm seeing drink specials now where it's Thursday nights, ladies, all you can drink for $10 starting at 9. I'm seeing late night happy hours. And the problems that occur with this oversaturation that we have is that we're all competing for the same clients. And that's when the drink specials come out and the over-intoxication happens. And I'm just really concerned. Yes, downtown is a lively, entertaining district, but it is a neighborhood. People live here, and I think we deserve to treat our neighbors with some respect in that regard too. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention, and hopefully we can have some discussions down the road similar to what we are with server training. But I hate to see anything happen. And it's, in my view, just a matter of time. So
That's,
that's what I have to say.
thanks, Kay. Those are excellent comments. And actually, at the city commission meeting, I had public safety in the downtown on the agenda, and I'll be putting on the agenda for the foreseeable future. The aggressive panhandling and the harassment of our law-abiding citizens is going to stop. It's worse here than it is in downtown San Francisco. So I was on the radio yesterday for an hour, and it was nothing but online comments and on the radio comments for an hour about all the bad experiences in downtown Fargo. And it's not people drinking in bars. The majority of the people that are drinking and taking drugs are not in the bars. They're people that buy high content alcohol, and it's awful. And if we're not careful, we're going to lose our downtown. We've spent all this money developing the downtown, the Renaissance Zone, all that stuff. But if people don't feel safe coming down here, it's going to die. And so we do have to take action. And I made a promise, we are going to take action. We are going to clean house in downtown Fargo because the bullshit's going to stop. It's ridiculous. And here's what's happening. We're saying we need to raise more taxes for health care, mental health, and drugs. No, we don't. We need cops downtown and tell them wherever you go is good. You're just not staying here. That's what we're going to do. So I appreciate it, but this isn't the bar owners. If you look at the people that are passed out and panhandling, they're not in the bars. And so anyway, it's a huge, this might be the most important issue going on right now. And so I'm on it, and I make a promise, we are going to clean house because this is ridiculous.
I 100% agree. I worked downtown for many, many years, and I no longer work downtown. My wife is extremely unhappy because she is now working downtown as of about 2 or 3 months ago. And she sends me daily pictures of people literally relieving themselves right below her office window. It's disgusting.
I can top that. So I had a video last Friday morning at 6 a.m, 2 vagrants having sex in Broadway Square. The sun's out in downtown Fargo. So if you think San Francisco, Seattle, Minneapolis, Detroit, Chicago, they're awful, you know what people say? It's worse here. It's worse in Fargo, North Dakota. So I'm just telling you, I apologize for being a little bit of a rant, but I'll make you promise this, it's going to stop. It's going to stop. I'll promise. All right. With that, we are adjourned.
I have one more thing.
No, we're adjourned. Thank